History remembers the Caesars, the conquerors, the men who built Rome and expanded its empire across 3 continents. But they rarely mention the Syrian widow who brought them to their knees. Zenobia didn't just defend her borders. She didn't just survive in Rome's shadow. She marched across the desert and stole the crown jewel of the Roman Empire, Egypt, the breadbasket, the treasure house, the province that fed Rome itself. And she held it for 5 years, while Rome starved, while emperors fell, while the empire teetered on the edge of collapse. This is the story of how a woman from the Syrian desert transformed grief into ambition, ambition into empire, and nearly shattered Roman hegemony through calculated brilliance, tactical genius, and absolute refusal to accept her assigned role. This is Queen Zenobia, the rebel empress who proved that silk and steel together can dismantle even Rome. To 67 AD, the Roman Empire is crumbling, not metaphorically, literally. The crisis of the 3rd century has turned the greatest empire in history into a chaotic mess of revolving door emperors, barbarian invasions, economic collapse, and civil war. In 50 years, Rome will have over 50 emperors, most lasting months, some just weeks, all dying violently. The empire is fragmenting, and on its eastern frontier, in the desert city of Palmyra, a remarkable leader has emerged. Odenathus, king of Palmyra, officially a Roman client king, Almaphaki, the most powerful man in the east. He's defeated the Persians when Rome couldn't, stabilized the frontier when Roman legions failed, become so essential that Rome granted him unprecedented titles and authority. He's keeping the eastern provinces loyal while the Western Empire tears itself apart. And then, suddenly, he's assassinated, along with his eldest son, at a family gathering. The official story, a personal vendetta by a relative. The whispers, Roman involvement, because Odenathus was becoming too powerful, too independent, too much of a threat. True or not, Palmyra believes it. And the grieving widow Odenathus's second wife, Zenobia, turns that belief into action. She's in her late 20s, educated, intelligent, multilingual. She speaks Aramaic, Greek, Egyptian, and some Latin. Raised in a culture that, unlike Rome, doesn't automatically exclude women from power. And she has a young son, Varbolithus, the legitimate heir. In normal circumstances, a regency follows. The widow governs until the son comes of age. Standard procedure. Zenobia has other plans. She moves immediately, consolidates military loyalty, promotes generals who supported Odenathus, secures the Palmyrene army's allegiance to her son, and through him, to her. She doesn't wait for Rome's permission, doesn't ask for recognition, just takes power and dares anyone to challenge her. Rome, drowning in its own chaos, doesn't respond, can't respond, has bigger problems. Zenobia interprets silence as weakness, and weakness as opportunity. If Rome murdered her husband, she'll show them the cost. If Rome won't protect the East, she will. If Rome's grip is slipping, she'll be the one to catch what falls. Within months of Odenathus's death, Zenobia isn't just ruling Palmyra. She's planning something unprecedented. She's going to take Egypt to 70 AD, While Rome's current emperor fights barbarians in Europe, Zenobia strikes. Her general, Zabdas, leads a lightning military campaign south through Arabia Petrea into Egypt. Not a massive invasion, a swift, surgical operation. The Roman garrison in Egypt is undermanned. Most legions have been pulled north to deal with more immediate threats. What remains is unprepared for a serious assault from a supposedly loyal ally. Zabdas's forces move with desert speed. They bypass fortified positions, strike at communications, isolate Roman units before they can coordinate. Alexandria, the greatest city in the east, second only to Rome itself, falls without a prolonged siege. The Roman prefect flees. The garrison surrenders. Egypt, the breadbasket of the empire, is now Pomerine territory. And Zenobia understands exactly what she's captured. Not just territory, not just wealth, control. Egypt produces the grain that feeds Rome. Literally, the unknown of the free grain distribution to Rome's population depends on Egyptian supply. 500,000 people in Rome eat because Egyptian grain ships arrive on schedule. Zenobia now controls whether Rome eats. It's economic warfare at its most brutal. She's not threatening military conquest of Rome, she's threatening to starve the capital into submission. And there's more. Alexandria isn't just an economic prize. It's an intellectual and cultural capital. The library, the museum, the pharaoh's lighthouse, the legitimacy that comes from controlling Cleopatra's city. Zenobia positions herself as Cleopatra's heir, the new queen of Egypt, blending Hellenistic sophistication with Syrian power, presenting herself not as a rebel, but as the rightful ruler of the East. And if you're watching this thinking about how brilliantly Zenobia weaponized logistics and cultural legitimacy to challenge a superpower, hit that subscribe button and like this video. Because this isn't just ancient history, it's a masterclass in asymmetric warfare and strategic thinking that still applies today. With Egypt secured, Zenobia doesn't stop. She expands Syria, Palestine, Arabia, large portions of Asia Minor. By 271 AD, the Pomerine Empire controls nearly a third of Rome's eastern territories, and Palmyra transforms from a desert trading post into a cosmopolitan capital that rivals Rome itself. Zenobia pours Egyptian wealth into architecture, art, scholarship. She attracts philosophers, poets, scholars, creates a court that blends Syrian, Greek, Egyptian, and Persian influences. She styles herself in the image of Cleopatra but stronger. She rides into battle, leads military councils, makes strategic decisions personally. Ancient sources, admittedly written by Romans after her defeat, describe her as physically striking, with dark skin and brilliant eyes, more beautiful than Cleopatra, incredibly intelligent and learned, able to march with infantry on foot, capable of drinking her generals under-the-table propaganda. Probably, but the image matters. She's not hiding in a palace, she's visible, active, involved. And critically, she's minting coins with her son's face alongside hers, issuing decrees in their joint names, presenting the Pomerine Empire as legitimate, hereditary, divinely sanctioned. She's not rebelling against Rome, she's replacing it. In the East, at least, Rome finally notices. Because Rome is starving, the grain isn't coming, the people are angry, and the new emperor, Aurelian, realizes his survival depends on reclaiming Egypt, not for glory, for food. Aurelian is different from the string of useless emperors before him. He's a soldier emperor, competent, ruthless, determined to restore the empire or die trying. And he turns his full attention to the east, to 72 AD. Aurelian's legions march into Asia Minor. Zenobia's forces meet them near Antioch. The battle is fierce. Pomerine cavalry desert riders who've perfected mounted archery against Roman heavy infantry. Mobility versus discipline. The Pomerines employ Parthian tactics, feigned retreats, harassing fire, trying to break Roman formations. It doesn't work. Roman discipline holds. The legions advance methodically. The Pomerines withdraw. Antioch falls to Aurelian. The second major battle happens at Emesa. Zenobia is there personally. Accounts suggest she's not just observing, she's involved in tactical decisions. Leading from the front. Again, the Pomerines lose. Roman military superiority in set-piece battles is overwhelming. But Zenobia doesn't surrender. She withdraws to Palmyra, the desert fortress, the city that's never fallen, where desert supply lines favor defenders, where Roman legions will struggle. If she can hold Palmyra, she can negotiate, keep some territory, preserve some independence. Aurelian lays siege. The siege of Palmyra tests everything: food, water, morale, leadership. Zenobia holds. Months pass. The city doesn't break, but supply lines work both ways. Palmyra can't resupply easily either, and Aurelian is patient. He's not in a hurry. He's already reclaimed Egypt, already secured the grain supply. He can wait. Zenobia recognizes the math. Palmyra will eventually fall. The question is whether she's captured when it does. She makes a desperate decision: escape, flee to Persia, seek sanctuary and military support, return with Persian backing. She nearly makes it. Mounted on a dromedary faster than horses over desert, she flees toward the Euphrates, toward the Persian border. Roman cavalry pursues, catches her at the river, just miles from freedom. She's captured, brought before Aurelian. What happens next depends on which source you believe. Roman propaganda says she blamed her advisors, begged for mercy, acted cowardly. Other accounts suggest she maintained dignity even in defeat. What's certain, Aurelian doesn't execute her. He can't. She's too famous, too admired. Killing her would make her a martyr. Instead, he parades her through Rome in his triumph, golden chains, walking behind his chariot, a spectacle of Roman victory over the rebel queen. After that, mystery. Some sources say she was given a villa in Tibur, lived out her days in comfortable exile. Others suggest she died shortly after. We don't know. Her son Varbolithus vanishes from historical record, probably executed quietly. Palmyra sacked, partially destroyed, never regains its former glory. The Pomerine Empire erased from the map within months. But Zenobia's story doesn't end with her defeat. Because she proved something Rome couldn't ignore. The empire was vulnerable. A single determined ruler with strategic brilliance could seize its most valuable provinces, could hold them for years, could bring Rome to the negotiating table through economic pressure. She showed that Roman military superiority wasn't absolute, that desert tactics and cavalry mobility could challenge the legions, that a woman could command armies, make strategic decisions, and earn military respect. She demonstrated that legitimacy wasn't about Roman approval, that creating an alternative power center, building cultural institutions, minting coins, and projecting sovereignty could work at least for a while. Modern historians increasingly recognize Zenobia not as a romantic rebel, but as a sophisticated political operator who exploited Roman weakness during a critical moment. Her rebellion forced reforms, made Rome strengthen eastern defenses, changed how the empire approached client states. She's remembered in Syrian and Arab tradition as a national hero, a symbol of resistance against empire, a woman who refused to be sidelined. Her face appears on Syrian currency. Her story is taught as history and legend simultaneously. Because Zenobia succeeded at something few ever do, she challenged Roman hegemony and made it stick even if only temporarily. She transformed a regional power into an empire. She weaponized grain, culture, and legitimacy as effectively as armies. And she proved that the Roman peace wasn't inevitable. That silk and steel together, wielded with calculated ambition, could bring even the greatest empire to its knees. Rome won the war, but Zenobia won immortality. That's not a bad trade for a Syrian widow who refused to know her place.